who organize green drinks, and we are actually doing it for 2 months once, something like that. Our next one will be in January. I'll tell more later. But anyway, let me just why green drinks is held in KLEFF itself, KLEFF Fest. So right now, this week actually, from Monday to Sunday, this place technically has one event which is called KLEFF Fest, and it is by Yasmin. Technically, she's the boss of the KLEFF Fest. Okay, so one day actually she emailed us. It's like, hey, I would like to invite green drinks to be organized in this in this KLEFF Fest, and we were like, okay, yeah, we are very happy. So we are actually thinking, hey, what can we do? So okay, they are talking about films. So our theme today is films and environment. So how does film relates to environment? Okay. So yeah, we are here, and today our moderator is Jeffrey. Okay. So yeah, I'll pass the floor to Jeffrey.
Hi, thank you, and good evening, everyone. So how are you all feeling? Still energetic, still fresh? Although it's around 8 p.m. at night and it's a Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Okay, so just an introduction for myself. My name is Jeffrey, and currently I am taking Master in Sustainable Development Practice. And why I joined Green Drinks is because I felt myself actually being cocooned in the academic field for too long, because like primary, secondary, university, and then right now. So I wanted actually to give back something to the community. So that is why I joined Green Drinks around last year December. Yeah, so right now I would like to introduce the two honorable speakers, Yasmin as well as Farhan, Umedaly. Okay, first of all, I wanted to say something about myself, about why I'm so passionate about the environment. It all started way back is, I thought this world is a very perfect world. You know, it's for us to grow, for us to live very well, and then also for us to learn and thrive. But as I grew older and I start watching news, and then I saw there is this very disturbing figures like there is war, human harming other humans, human harming other animals, as well as mass destruction of forests. And then so it actually makes my heart very sad, and I actually wanted to do something to make this world a better place in terms of environment. So I found this environment is my greatest passion until right now. It has never changed since my primary school. Okay, so how do I link my environment passion to the speakers? Okay, first of all, I've tried to make a few videos during my undergraduate, and you can see Farhan actually, he is a neurobiologist, and does anyone know why he can become a filmmaker instead of neurobiologist? Yeah, so maybe Farhan can give you some introduction and as well as his background on why he has become really passionate about environmental filmmaking. Yeah.
Hey guys, how are you?
Great.
So, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. Is that okay? All right, okay. You guys tell me what's okay, what's not okay. Anyway, so, how did I, yeah, he mentioned that I studied neurobiology. That's true. The thing is, so basically I always wanted to figure out what I was made of, what made the world go round, so I really loved biology. So I kind of wanted, at some point in my career, like high school, I wanted to redefine myself as a smart person because I wasn't like very well known for performing well in school. So I said, let me study something hard, and so that's what I chose, and I followed through with it. And I actually used to do cardiovascular research on diving mammals, so that's seals, and we were kind of relating it back to how we can detect degeneration in the heart tissue. But I'll get into that another time, don't worry about it. So, how did I become a filmmaker? Well, I actually was I learned violin at a very young age, so from age 7, and then I started teaching myself digital music production when I was 15, and then I taught myself several other instruments, and I was basically producing music all through university, and so high school and university, and when I finished my research, I moved to Lebanon and Egypt to produce music for an Arabic pop singer, so I was like a complete scientist with some music passion, and I went into show business. And then what I found was I didn't like it at all. Because I was representing a female artist, and she was all about, and I had to pretend I was her quote-unquote manager and producer, but everybody was talking such dirt, like how can I get in bed with this person, and all of these contracts we were getting were completely based on exploiting this woman, and I couldn't be a part of it. So I said, forget it, I'm done. So I was done with that, I moved back to Vancouver, my home, and I said, well, I gotta do something good for the world. I've been in dealing with such scumbags in the music business, I gotta do something good. So I begged this renewable energy company it was based in Scotland to hire me to be a sales manager for this laser anemometer system. And laser anemometers are used for detecting wind speed to set up wind energy projects, and you can do fluid dynamics modeling basically to optimize the wind energy project. So they didn't give me that job, they found a PhD that was better than I would ever be at that. But they made me a junior project coordinator, and then I moved into a project coordinator position planning and developing renewable energy projects. And what I realized then was these projects face a lot of obstacles. They need a lot of public support, and you need to show the stakeholders that you're going to reduce costs, what's the benefit to the community, etc. So I put my thinking cap on, and I realized, well, I've got a science background, I understand this stuff, technical stuff very well. I can communicate it make complex subjects easy to understand. And I have the music production background, so my music can live to inspire people and make positive change through films, because I know how to do music videos, therefore I know how to tell some kind of a story. So my first project was for a small hydro dam worth $500 million worth of capital investment, and 4 bankers were responsible for that. And my neighbor was the developer. And because I worked so I had an in with my neighbor, right? He was the guy, everything depended on these 4 bankers, and he was desperate. So I asked him one day, so how are you going to convince these guys that this is a good project? Well, he says, I have an engineering study, a stack of engineering studies like this thick, right? And I'm like, well, what if one of them had a bad day, or how are they going to pay attention to all of this? He's like, well, what's your point, Farhan? What are you even talking about? I'm like, well, look, let's hire a helicopter with the door off, and I'll film from the air and animate how the whole site is going to come together, and I'll put together a tight script showing how you're going to mitigate or minimize the environmental footprint, use existing roads, use existing transmission lines, offer jobs to the community, engage indigenous people, and create that this project, you can actually see the resource, right? And so he's like, wow, that's a great idea, right? Well, how much is this going to cost? And I had no idea how much to charge this guy. But I knew the project was $500 million. So there was probably it was probably worth something to the guy. So I'm like, well, he's like, I'll have to think about it. And he's like, no, tell me now. I don't have time for this. Just tell me how much this is going to cost. I'm like, $25,000. And I was like, because I figured, what would it cost to set up the ultimate production studio in 2009, right? $7,000 camera, $7,000 Mac Pro, all the software, some extra shit, whatever I needed, right? And so, yeah, he's like, okay, I'll call you in 15 minutes, all right? I'm like, awesome. I'm like, well, he asked me actually, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, I'm free. I'm totally free. So he actually called me 15 minutes later. He's like, get your batteries charged. I've booked a helicopter with the door off and a flight for you to Nakus, BC. You got to film this whole thing in the next 4 days because it's going to snow, and I don't want the bankers to see the snow is going to be there. I'm like, wow. So I didn't know how to do this production at all, actually, at the time. I sort of knew. But I said yes, and I did it, and I delivered it, and I learned how to animate, and I basically, it did its job. And then those bankers were happy, he got his project built, and I was like, wow. At the end of that production, I put VoVo Productions at the end of it, and my company was born. Is that simple? Yeah. And so from there, I basically produced about 200 promotional videos and commercials for like mostly renewable energy companies, and I started to do, so I carved a niche market for myself as a filmmaker. Was just basically marketing productions, right? Like advertising videos. And then I started to get more involved with an organization called the David Suzuki Foundation, and he's a well-known environmentalist in Canada. And he gifted, so I started doing some productions about climate change for him, and then he gifted my services to Reconciliation Canada, which is a group that's trying to create, put the past, Canada's horrible colonial past behind, and kind of build bridges with Indigenous people. And I kind of learned about what Canada had done to Indigenous people at that point, and I realized that, okay, my family came here as refugees from Uganda, but that doesn't mean I should accept everything that's going on in this country and just be so thankful and like in a bliss like a lot of immigrant people are in Canada. I have to own the fact that I'm Canadian and be a part of positive change, so that eventually there was a right-wing government that sort of started to become more prevalent. Like they were throwing Muslim people under the bus as like radicals. They were trying to incite, actually they were kind of hoping for a terrorist attack in Canada, like trying to incite it, because that way they would have been able to have a fear-based government and have a grip on the people and would become very much like the United States. And so, but I noticed that Indigenous people were also being called radicals and terrorists when they were defending their environment, our shared environment, the environment of all the world. And I realized that, well, this Canada that is like this land of freedom and opportunity could become a hell pretty quickly for me. So I decided to start protesting with Indigenous people to protect the environment. And that sprung this opportunity to produce this one film called The Last Stand for Lilu, which is how I got involved with KLEFF, because we won Best Documentary Short a couple of years ago. And since then, I defined myself as no longer a promotional video person that cares about the world, but a documentary filmmaker. So it's KLEFF that launched me in that way, and I'm so happy to be back here. That's it.
Yeah, you heard it from Farhan experience. Yes, okay, now for Yasmin, she is a marine biologist in degree, and for myself actually, how I connect with her is, I see there is some common that we actually practice down to our very personal life, is that I myself also do recycling at home. I myself segregate waste into 3 different bins, and I actually bring this practice to my universities, and I also ask all of my housemates and my friends also to do this thing together. Yeah, and Yasmin, just wanted to know more about you. Like, how can you inspire so many people, and as well as the person around you, to live really sustainably? Yeah.
How do I start? Maybe I'll start like how Farhan did as well. I studied marine biology. I've always loved the sciences when I was young. I grew up in a very small town in Ipoh where we're just not used to doing things indoors. We did a lot of things outdoors. So even if I couldn't go far, I will be in the nearest drain, catching tadpoles, that kind of thing. So it's very outdoor place. And there was a tapioca farm near where I lived. So we would always be playing around on the tapioca plants. I also have another degree in religion. What I did in university was I balanced my science classes, because when you're a science student, you have to take calculus, you take all sorts of like organic chem. And I balanced each semester with a class that brought me closer to understanding contemporary religion, and I like the idea of understanding the different philosophies and beliefs and so forth. I actually zoomed into the Navajos in the US. I studied a specific tribe of Native American religion by the Navajos. We call it religion, but for them it's just a spiritual belief. So I think my journey started pretty much there. I was very science-based, but I think studying something social science, humanize my perspective of things, my understanding of things. How do I inspire people? I never thought of inspiring other people. I've always thought of just doing what I felt was sensical, was natural. And I need to explain where this comes from. My grandparents were immigrants. My grandfather came from Chennai, India, in a boat in 1872. My grandmother is from mainland China. And they lived in an environment during the during the Japanese War, communism, where things were scarce. The importance of growing food was important because there was no resources. You don't have rice, you don't have anything. And I think I grew up with these values at home. You know, I have a grandmother who would categorize the plastic bags according to size. And she's illiterate. She does not spell, she doesn't know how to write. How is it a woman who's not exposed to how we were exposed, didn't get a university education, neither did she go to high school, would have a very basic understanding of managing waste, being resourceful at home and all that. So I think I took up a lot of these. I've been asked this question many times, but I think I've overthought this question a lot, and I think it really goes back to my upbringing. So I don't see myself as inspiring people, but I think people feel that way because I just do what I feel is necessary. And if that is what people say, my act is inspiring, then I'm truly, truly honored to think that people actually observe what I do or think that they can embody in themselves. So everything that you're seeing around you with KLEFF, with EcoKnights, has been very accidental. If you ask me, did I want to be an NGO person? No, I wasn't exposed to any NGOs when I was growing up. All I knew was the sciences of life was very fascinating, something interesting. I like to dig deep into understanding science. But in the last 20 years, a new revelation has come where I realize science is meaningless without social science as well. I think we need to look at how we humanize science. I mean, there's tons of technology out there, tons of amazing things that you can do to reverse the kind of degradation you see out there. But it still takes a sane human with the right values to make it happen. So I've seen in the last 10 years that I like to have a science-based approach to things, but we often neglect the human side of things. So that's why a lot of the work that EcoKnights does is really about just trying to do this kind of awakening with people so that they can plug in and, as you say it, be inspired.
Wow, that's a really wonderful introduction by Yasmin Rasyid, the founder of EcoKnights, and as well as Farhan Umedaly, this VoVo production. Okay, so now we will be starting the presentation session or the sharing session by Yasmin Rasyid first. Okay, Farhan first, yes. Yeah, as Farhan will be showing you some of his clips between his presentations. So yeah, they will be a very interesting session. Yeah, so Farhan, please.
Okay, let's go. It's these new MacBook Pros that have no ports on them, so you have to stick this little dongle on the side and it pops out all the time. So this, basically, I kind of already introduced myself. I hope I didn't bore you guys, and if it gets boring, just let me know. So basically, this was where I kind of left off, which is, again, this film that I always talk about here because it was so important to me, which is The Last Stand for Lilu. And then, so this is actually the island that the film was about. So this is Lilu Island here, and this is a place called Flora Bank, and it's basically a sandbar that this massive river called the Skeena comes right out of here, and it pushes all the sand this way, and the tides push the sand this way, and it's been there for tens of thousands of years, and it's where all these juvenile salmon basically spend their time to mature before they go up and out. So Petronas, which is a Malaysian oil and gas company, wanted to build this liquid natural gas plant right here, and it would actually destroy the fish and the way of life of the indigenous people, and there wasn't any media reporting it. I actually planned on going up there just to do media releases, but nobody wanted to cover it. It was just not an important place. It was too far away from Vancouver, because it's like kind of close to Alaska, and at the time we had this very right-wing government I was mentioning to you, and they were just, everybody that was resisting this project was a radical. But anyway, so long story short is that project, we produced this film, and the first film award was at KLEFF, and numerous others after that, and last year on October, slide over here. So these are some of the defenders that were there. This is one of the drill barges that was doing illegal work on the territory. So the government of Canada promised, I think the Malaysian government or Petronas, that they could do this project, but it was actually illegal because the government of Canada didn't have the rights to this land. It was non-treaty indigenous land, so that was kind of the basis of the story. And the film kind of was actually kind of a marketing documentary in a way, because we wanted to show, it was purposely made to show a united front of resistance that was going to cost the developer money. Every single day that work was going to be done, that these people were occupying, was going to cost them money. They will never succeed in making this project. That was the message on that film. But also to humanize indigenous people, which is sadly something that has to be done in Canada, because it's not a racist country, kind of like, I would say the United States is much more racially segregated because it's built on slavery, and it's like the white vote, the Hispanic vote, and all this ridiculous separation all the time. But when it comes to indigenous people in Canada, it's still a colonized country. They were supposed to be gone. And if you think of the whole point was get rid of the indigenous people so they can exploit the land and resources. Well, obviously that's bad for the environment too. And they're just collateral damage in the way. But, you ever heard of the term Aboriginal? Aboriginal people? If you think about the root word of it, ab means used to be. Original. Used to be in a negative way, like abhorrent, absent, all of these. So it's a colonial term to label indigenous people as something that used to be, where the white colonizer would be the new original. And those people don't matter anymore. Just so you guys know, never use that word if you can avoid it. I always go with indigenous. It's much more, it's not a hate-driven word, Anyways. And October 12th, last year, this $36 billion project was actually canceled. And because it actually didn't, so it was a good win. It was a cool thing because the first part of the film actually exposed, I was actually a sponsor of Canada-India Business Council, which is like it's like I'm an Indian, like genetically and whatever, so I got to market within the Indian community to get opportunities. So I was sponsoring this event, and the premier was there, and she was talking about LNG and how it's the future of the province, and it was all about fracking, which is a horrible thing you guys know about already, right? And that's how you get liquid natural gas in BC. So anyways, I remember I was just like, what an idiot, and how could she think that taking raw resources out of the ground and just shipping them to Asia as a future? What about human ingenuity? What about what California does with innovation? They're not exporting raw materials, they're exporting their talent. That's what we should do. Invest in our talent and build in a real society that can generate wealth, sustainable wealth. Anyways, I'm gonna start ranting about this. So I ended up becoming 2 years later, this person occupying this island with these indigenous people and realizing I had footage of the premiere talking about LNG. As soon as I got off the island, went back to my studio, turned on my old Mac Pro, the same one I bought with that original money, and I had her on camera saying we popped open the bottles of champagne with Petronas on this project, and this is before she had any environmental survey work was done, before any consultation with indigenous people, and it just goes to show that it was all of these environmental studies and consultation was all garbage. She had already greenlit this project and promised the Malaysian government something, which she could not deliver. So she actually conned Petronas into putting all this money. So I hope, it was ridiculous what politicians do, Anyways, it was canceled, and so that was a good thing. But I'm supposed to talk about progress and how creating positive change through film. And that doesn't always mean shutting something down, right? This is a project that didn't make sense, but we can also do stuff that I realized you can inspire change by doing, building things. So that's where I'm going to go with this next. Okay, anyways, KLEFF started a landslide of victories, and I'm really, really stoked about that. But I just put them up there. And that was just basically for last time for Lilu, and a couple others for some recent films. But so since that time, I defined myself since KLEFF that time. I am now a documentary filmmaker. No more promotional videos. I do that too. But because, you know what? It's hard to get people to pay for worthwhile stuff. So I have a for-profit wing in my company. I don't market companies that are doing destructive things. They're mostly sustainable organizations. But I take that money, I can buy really good camera gear. So when I do my documentary films about stuff I really care about, it's top quality, and that's what the stories deserve, So I'm always trying to enhance myself. So this is one that's going to premiere tomorrow at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here at KLEFF, if you're interested in watching. It's called The Sun on Top of the House. It's about the Haida, another indigenous community based it's a northern part of British Columbia. It's an island called Haida Gwaii. They had diesel imposed on them through colonization, and they're dependent on diesel to basically power their island. But now they're moving they've reclaimed their island. They've said, we want to indigenous culture isn't a thing of the past. We're going to be leaders in renewable energy and get rid of fossil fuels, and that's what this film is about. So it's really powerful. They built the largest community solar project in BC, and I think so I'll tell you guys about that later. So then I'm also working on a documentary with some organizations involving NASA, etc., about water technology and how it can solve the world's water crisis. It's a hopeful story. It's not doom and gloom stuff, so don't worry. Then I did 2 Hollywood films, which I honestly off the record, I don't really care about Hollywood or these films, but I did my best as a cinematographer. I was a director of photography, assistant director, and a producer of it. And it features 2 people from the worst movie of all time. It's called The Room. It's actually the worst movie ever made. It's known in the world as the worst. Have you ever heard of Tommy Wiseau? Anybody heard of this guy? Yeah, okay, so there's a couple. But there's a movie called The Disaster Artist, and it's about how this crazy guy wanted to make a movie and he did a terrible job, but it was so terrible that everyone loved it because it was just awesomely bad. It's so bad, it's awesome. Anyways, we brought them back, and it has a cult following, so it I don't know what I was doing, honestly. I just thought it would help my environmental platform. So it's out, and it was bought by Lionsgate, which is actually a really big production distributor in Hollywood. So I just thought that would, anyway, that's what I've done so far. Some films, and then, so that Sun on Top of the House film that's going to premiere tomorrow was an interesting model. It's not just an exercise in storytelling, it's an exercise in actually making a renewable energy project using a film. So what we do is I partnered with an indigenous renewable energy developer. It's actually a friend of mine. And so what we do is for every renewable energy project, indigenous renewable energy project we build, we make a documentary. And we go to leading solar companies and inverter companies and government agencies and NGOs that fund these types of things and say, hey, we're going to build this community solar project, but we're also doing a documentary, and we're going to feature your organization in that. We're going to feature your solar company in that. So give us free panels, give us free inverters, and we'll this is the best advertising dollars you could have. So they can do all their press releases and whatever they want, all the collateral to show that they were part of something positive, and we direct the narrative. The indigenous people's voices directs the narrative. So it's not a corporate, like we're not just pawns to corporations, but that actually catalyzes renewable energy project from happening, because people want to, ironically, we live in a superficial world and people want to show that they're doing positive work. That's good too, because it does inspire other communities who are doing the same thing. So it's actually film making renewable energy happen and telling that story and inspiring others. So that's kind of cool, I thought. There's another film that I produced recently for the Gitmiao. They're another indigenous community they're near Alaska. And they basically are gonna be using this film to generate ecotourism dollars. So sell like $5,000, $10,000 packages for like people that wanna come and see grizzly bears up close, see salmon up close, experience their culture. And I think, so basically that money will go back into the Guardians program, and the Guardians program is actually, what they're doing is they're actually putting boots on the ground, like people, indigenous, like guardians that report to the hereditary chief, that monitor all the environment, all the activity, all of the hunting, all of the logging. If somebody's on the territory, on a trail and they shouldn't be there, that's causing problems, or they'll move them out. If they restore creeks, they fix old roads that were built from logging. Like loggers used to go in there and like just completely destroy their land. So now they're restoring all of that. So the film is actually going to fund the protection of the land. So another interesting model. Now I have how much time to talk? How much time is this? Do I have 5 minutes left? Okay. Well, what I could do is I was going to play you a little clip of that. Maybe I'll just play you just a short section of that, 2 minutes, and then I'll talk to you quickly about. I'll show you something else. How about that? Okay, we'll do this first. Hold on. No, it's already set.
That is my traditional name. I am from the House of Westland, from the Wolf tribe of Gitmiao. Our traditional territory in Gitmiao covers about 6,200 square kilometers between the Skeena River and the Nass River. Gitmiao comprises of 2 clans, the Wolf clan and the Frog clan. With that, there are 8 houses that occupy the traditional territory, 4 of which is the Wolf tribe and 4 of which is the Frog tribe. The reason why we hold such a big territory is because it is our food basket. Our food basket is what brings in all our medicinal plants, our food, shelter. And the reason why we have to look after this is because it means so much for the First Nations people here in Gitmiao. It is our tradition, it is our culture, and we hold that firmly because this has been passed on to us from generation to generation for thousands and thousands of years. And we believe that this will be continuing on. We're going to continue to pass on our traditional methods and values to the children that are going to be coming after us.
My name is Tar Marsden, and my traditional name is Nahdink. I'm from Wilkamakilt. Our role at the Chief's Office is to really support and serve our 8 chiefs as well as the Huilk, which is all of the Wilk members. And a lot of our conservation efforts are focused around the implementation of our land use plan. And that's my primary role here is the Gitmiao land use plan implementation. And that plan took around 10 years to negotiate by the chiefs. And 3 court cases, so it means a lot, and it is a very good tool to manage for sustainability and for future generations.
And we don't have all day, so I can't play the whole thing for you, but it has some really beautiful animal shots. And anyways, a lot of the times I play this film for people, they're like, oh, I want to go up there and check this place out. And so that's exactly what they're going to be using the film for, is to generate that ecotourism revenue. I'm going to make this really fast because I have a very short amount of time. Another thing we're doing at VoVo Productions is our Empowered Filmmaker Masterclass, which is, let me actually load this up here. So this, so we started a program last year, and it was a pilot program with TELUS, which is a telecom company, and it's expanded into three classes this past summer. So I personally trained 75 Indigenous people, like youth and adults, going into remote communities, 25 people per class. They make 5 production teams out of the 25, so 5 in each team, and in 5 days, they learn how to make films, and we have a film festival. Wow. And it's something it's hard to do, but not with these guys, because they're so driven to restore their culture and protect their land, and they're natural storytellers, so it just happens. Wow. And I thought, I'll just actually show you a couple pictures from it, and I'll play you one short video that they made, and I'm done, I promise. Okay. So these are just some pictures from the masterclass. So it's actually an official training program, so they get a certification. We also do KLEFF style film awards too at the screenings, and then I give away, my company sponsors, we contribute 4K cameras. We give them away to aspiring filmmakers in the group. So we give away 4 4K cameras this summer. And usually to the underdog who can benefit the community as well. Usually I kind of look and see who has promise and who's just good at, who has a sparkle in their eye, I wanted to play you, so Indigenous communities have way higher instances of alcohol abuse and high suicide rates because of the damage of colonization. The current generation, youth, their parents were taken away from their grandparents and put into what you call residential schools, forcibly kidnapped from their families in Canada. People don't know this. And basically they were taught that they were savages. They had to burn their traditional clothing. And they would teach them that they would now become Christian and this is the way to be. It was basically a way to assimilate and destroy them. It's either destroy or assimilate was the colonial strategy. And as a result, there was a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of physical abuse, because a lot of those caretakers really didn't care about the kids, They were kind of free-for-all, and there was no accountability. You could do whatever you wanted to these people, right? And so there's a lot of alcohol abuse that just becomes an abusive pattern. But now what we're seeing is a revolution to restore their culture, and rebuild. And I think because they were an oral tradition, so they don't have a lot of scripture to protect the stories that were passed down, a lot of damage was done. But there's a hack to this: filmmaking. Yeah, seriously. You can immortalize stories of elders and restore the language by filming and producing educational videos. You can go and do media clips to protect your territory. Filmmaking is the hack, and I think that they know it. So it's an unbelievable what they come up with. And I wanted to just share with you one production that a group of 5 teens and early 20s group did. Every single person in that group had a suicide attempt within 6 months of making this production.
Why?
It's just, they have such a terrible circumstance. They're so isolated. They're kind of stuck in the reserves, they were taken off their traditional territory and put in reserves where there's this huge instance of abuse and alcoholism, and it's just an unhealthy environment. But I wanted to show you how strong these people are when they're given the tools to tell a story. And it's much more than I could have ever asked, could ever have imagined. I just wanted to be able to provide technical skills in filmmaking, but I think you'll see what can come, like, just take a look at this production. I'll just roll it for you, hold on.
Depression is a common and life-changing mental illness in the Canadian population. This is especially true for First Nations people who experience major depression at twice the national average. At its worst, depression can lead to suicide.
I live with depression. I was diagnosed years ago and was put on antidepressants, but stopped several months after I was diagnosed. Years after that, I went through a very tough breakup. I had many terrible thoughts of doubt and suicide, while being left in disarray. I was scared and dismal because of what I've done and what can't be undone. It's all my fault. But what I found is that I lost myself, as well as lots of friends, due to the fact I was hiding everything. My pain, my sadness, my anger, and myself. One of my attempts was on the bridge. I thought if I just plunged myself off the bridge, my problems would be over, but it would only fall into someone else's hands.
My name is Ashley Howard. I'm from the Gitsan village of Gitsigukla, and I've been battling with depression and anxiety for years. After dealing with a series of unfortunate events, it led to self-harm, alcohol, and other drug abuses, which also led to the acts of suicide a couple of times in the last year. At this point, the days were getting darker and it was getting much more difficult to move on.
My name is Alex Stoney. I'm a Gitsan from Dutamas village. I live with depression. I went undiagnosed for years before I sought any kind of help. I dreaded stepping out my front door, sure that whatever I was doing was nothing of note or importance. I felt like everything I had done in the past was the only stuff that really mattered. In my darkest day, I felt like I had nothing left to offer. Those thoughts during that drive scared the hell out of me. They felt so real, but I knew that wasn't me. I took steps to combat depression by telling professionals and loved ones my situation. It's still a fight today, but now I have the tools and support to fight back. Depression had played its hand, but it wasn't strong enough to win.
What led to my recovery was realizing that I was hurting the people I loved, and because of that, I decided to get help, which started off with seeing my family doctor, who has recommended a counselor for me to see. And one of the main things she recommended was to get out more. So I started hiking, and that has been amazing.
One song at a time, I'll find my way out. So I'll keep writing and composing. Each song I write makes me feel more accomplished. Each song I play on the piano is a therapy session. Each day, I keep getting better.
Our past is what we've been through, but that is not who we are. It has helped mold us, but it does not define us. Someday, everything will make perfect sense. So for now, laugh at the confusion, smile through the tears, and keep reminding yourself that everything happens for a reason.
So what happened here, and something way more powerful than I could have imagined, was these guys drew basically an invisible barrier between their tragic suicide attempts and the bright future that they deserve because of filmmaking. You know, they're redefining who they are. They've come together, they have the capacity to help other people. And that's what filmmaking can do. And that's, I think, essentially the best way of catalyzing positive change. Thank you.
Wow, as you can see, the power of film is the power of healing. Okay, so next speaker will be Yasmin Rasyid. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, so let's welcome her to the floor and
I don't have slides. I apologize. But if I remember correctly, I think I'm supposed to share a little bit about how I got to, I guess, merge two different worlds of film and trying to get a message out about being more empowered to make a difference in the environment. Sorry, that film was really emotional. So maybe I'll just start by telling a bit of history about KLEFF. I think that may help structure my. And you know, since I was a kid, like I said, even though I was interested in the sciences, I loved the sciences, and everyone's like harping on you. You know, you got to be someone someday, and science pathway is the right way. Deep down inside me, I've always wondered, why can't creativity and science work together? Why can't these two fields of, you know, we look at it as two different dimensions, but why can't they integrate or come to a common point, you know, to do whatever it does? So I realized back then when EcoKnights was born in 2005 that I was dealing with a very young demographic. My daughter was 2 years old, and I was trying to look at where are the opportunities I can do or continue the work that I do for conservation or environment and be inclusive of my young daughter. And that got me interested in trying to see how audiovisual materials were actually something, and now you've got what you call your digital revolution, but back then I was like thinking, why can't we use the power of creativity to bring up or highlight issues and to inspire people to make subtle changes. I'm not asking about using visuals to make dramatic change, but just subtle changes. I myself love films. I love all sorts of films. Like I said, I studied religion at university. Half of the religion classes I took were film related. So I learned to appreciate things like cinematography, how do you embed subliminal messages into film to highlight a specific issue and so on and so forth. So I watched a bunch of films. And that kind of inspired me in 2008 to take this leap of faith. I didn't know KLEFF was going to be how it is today. I didn't know it was going to last for 11 years. I wanted to last for another 11 years. But I wanted to demonstrate that through audiovisual materials, you can move and communicate with people much better, much stronger, more strategically. And then of course you've got this whole boom of now you've got blogging, vlogging, and you've got, you know, I started blogging, it wasn't called blogging then when I was 21. I had access to university servers and I had a website. I did it when I was 21 years old. Today we call it vlogging and blogging, right? So that was pretty much my starting point. I took a lot of risk. I worked my ass off doing a lot of consultancies here and there. I saved like 20,000 ringgit and I dumped it all on the first Eco Film Fest. I never once thought that how I'm gonna make this money back, because I wanted, when I believe in something, I will make it work. Because the rest is just about figuring out what pathway, what way to make it work. So I invested 20,000 in it the first year, and I have no regrets back since then. And then to see how KLEFF has grown has been quite phenomenal as well. And I guess the rest is pretty much history. I'm not sure what you want to share unless you want to ask me questions. But I really believe, and a lot of the work that I do, I'm finishing my PhD right now as well. And my next effort, and my next idea I have is like, how do I communicate my boring thesis in like 3 minutes to you, and it makes perfect sense for you on what sustainable community development is. That's my next project. Maybe I'll work with VoVo Productions on this. But yeah, I think I probably react better if you have questions for me. I may not be very articulate right now, after especially watching his stuff. So if you've got any questions, I don't mind entertaining them, unless you want to move on.
Thank you, Yasmin, Rasyid. So right now we will be having a little panel session, so whereby the audience can engage with the speakers.
You guys should sit closer.
Okay, so shall we begin with the panel session? Yep. So, any question from the floor first? Okay, yeah, Bernard has it.
Hello, my name is Farhan. I'm always very inspired. I wanted to do something for videos, like I want to video things and stuff. You know, the layman would think of, do I need to have the technical skills? Do I need to buy heavy equipment and stuff? Like I'm really concerned about those fears that normal people will have. And how do you see this?
Thanks, Bernard.
There's YouTube, man. Honestly, that's how I learn everything, pretty much. There's always a nerd out there that knows more than you do, and they've made a film about it. And so, honestly, if you were to buy one piece, and the tool that I distribute in my film class, and that they make that last production with, are these things called DJI Osmos. They're not too popular, but basically they're like drone. They're like they're like a integrated gimbal camera. So it's like a drone camera with a handle, and basically you get a perfect shot every time. You can literally just stand there and you're like a tripod, or you can move and slightly turn it and you get a beautiful like cinematic slow move, and they're awesome storytelling tools. I would get that and like a little lapel microphone that you can plug into it, and you're like ready to rock. That film you watched that those kids did was just with that.
With your own mobiles or what?
You can use, so there's a couple options. There's Osmo Mobile, you can use your cellular phone on a gimbal setup, but these ones have an integrated camera, and that's kind of nice too. That's what I would say, and it's like, I think it's 800 Canadian, so I don't know what that is in ringgit, but I can show you
2,200 ringgit.
2,200 ringgit. And then that's pretty much a great way to start. You can do some amazing work with that. We're all like in tears over that. And that's just like the price of a GoPro. So not bad, you know?
I think most people would worry or maybe take a seat back when they think about the technicalities of filmmaking. I think good storytelling is more important. You can have substandard kind of tech, but I think if you really want to get a message out there, it's really about beefing up your storytelling. And everyone is a good storyteller, so don't tell me you're not a storyteller, because many of you are naturally storytellers. It's about basically finding the right elements in you to look at how you can translate these stories into something that moves people. Yeah, I think that's it. And I think with just a mobile phone these days, you can do so much. And there's so many apps in your mobile phone which you can edit, add sound, and you can do that transition. And you've got to do it first before you know what technical aspects of yourself you need to improve. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker like him, but I like to make films about my kids, you know, and I like to tell stories about that my kids are there. And so it helps. Farhan is actually running a workshop tomorrow, 2 to 5, on environmental storytelling. Of course, it's geared towards environmental storytelling, but it's storytelling nonetheless. If you have time, an opportunity, you can check out the workshop tomorrow at America. And we're quite lucky to have Panasonic bring some gear. If you're joining the workshop, leave your ID with them. You get to take your gear out for 2 hours tomorrow and shoot the hell out of whatever you want to shoot and play it back and look at where you stand with these things. So I think technical skills is something that I think you can learn, because if a kid 6 months old knows how to swipe right and left, you can do better.
Yeah, literally, if you show up tomorrow, I'll teach you everything you need to do to make a film.
Yeah, tomorrow's workshop's pretty kick-ass.
Okay, so please come to tomorrow's workshop and support. Yeah, Farhan? Yeah. Yep. Okay, so any other questions from the floor? Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more. Okay, yes. Yep.
Hi, I think I'll be directing this question to you, Yasmin. First of all, I would like to comment on your approach from the art background, because in conservation I'm quite new, but I've always seen conservation from the biological background. But I understand that you have a bunch of young team with you, but from your perspective, because you've been in this field for quite some time now, do you have any kind of expectation or the things that you lay out? What do you expect from these young people like me, and what's your opinion on the current generation? Thank you.
I don't hire environmentalists or science-based people, and that's not a prerequisite to be an EcoKnights. And I value university education, but you don't need to show me a piece of paper for me to validate that you're good. My youngest staff just turned 21. He's homeschooled. He doesn't believe in college, but he liked visual arts. He's very creative. He's a cartoonist. He sketches, and I've observed him since he was 14 years old. Because as a homeschool kid, his mom felt that he needed to be exposed to more social environment. So he has always been part of the EcoKnights family since he was young. And I've had the opportunity to observe this boy very, very closely. I don't know whether he's the older one. And when he came and said, I'm not sure if I want to go to college, I'm not sure if I can afford to go to college, but I like this. And in EcoKnights, we produce a lot of communication materials. So I told him, I have this issue. I need someone who is keen to look at translating my work into audiovisual materials. He said, I'll come back to you in 3 months. 3 months later, after a lot of YouTube Googling, he self-taught himself to manipulate all bunch of softwares. and every single collateral you see at KLEFF is designed by him. So I hire people who show me that they're willing to learn. I hire people who are, I'm a very intuitive person, so I tend to want to see the other side of a person. So my typical interview questions, if I ever get to a chance to interview people, will be like, what are you reading right now? Because for me, I think it's important that you're always filling up your soul with content, with information, knowledge, that for me will define what kind of team player you'll be. So back to the EcoKnights team, there's only probably 3 or 4 of us. We're a team of 8, I think, keep losing count, that have environmental science background. Fadli doesn't have he's computer science background. And I refuse to think that you must have an environment background to do meaningful work for the environment. And that's my task as well. How do I convert other people that study other fields to be relating to the environment on a more serious level? Did I answer your question? Yeah? Yeah, so I think conservation is important for everyone. It doesn't mean just because you're studying it, it's more important for you because you're studying it. The question is, how do you then convince that next person next to you? And if you're studying it so much, you should be able to influence people with your knowledge, right? You should be able to influence people with words, with music, with poetry, with visuals, like what he's doing as well. So I think I like to think that human talent is just not a very fixed boundary. You have to push yourself to other boundaries. And to be honest, like right now, I feel like, you know, if I'm done with my PhD, I probably want to go back to school again. Not because I think learning is this amazing process that fires you up really well, you know, and you must be brave enough to push yourself to learn as well. I think many of us live in a lot of man-made boundaries and fears. Yeah, if you want to grow, you need to go beyond that, and you need to be able to be brave to accept that failure is part of it, and that's it. So I think that's pretty much how I organically grew KLEFF or organically grew EcoKnights. And for the rest of you who don't know me, I'm not a staff of either one. I don't derive an income from EcoKnights, neither do I derive an income from KLEFF. Although I spend probably 60 hours a week in the EcoKnights office, but I just love doing this. I cannot explain it. It doesn't even make sense sometimes. You know, my husband is like, "What the hell are you doing?" But I love it, and I'm glad that, you know, with what Jeffrey said, if people find some part of me useful in any way, whether you call it inspiring or, you know, whatever, or if you like this platform and you take advantage of this platform and grow and groom yourself, then so be it. I think I like to just give back, and I'm built that way.
Is this even going in the right direction? You're guys expecting it?
It is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah, okay. The lady over there. Yeah.
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi.
Yasmin and Farhan. I'm glad today I'm here. I would like to ask Yasmin, what is your plan for the next 5 years for EcoKnights? What you wish to achieve? Thank you.
I like to grow the team. There's a lot more that we can do. This is the geek and nerd in me talking. I want to bring a lot of research back to the organization. I think when an organization like us has more substantial science-based effort, and that's why I'm training my team to look at basic social science survey. We're doing a bit of marine assessment right now because majority of my staff are, they're not my staff because I'm not their boss, but majority of them are from the marine background. So I like to, and I'm trying, constantly challenging them to look at being more futuristic in your understanding of the environment. So I'd like to start a science-based research team for EcoKnights. I don't know how I'm going to fund that yet, but I think funding, if I always have to worry about funding, there won't be EcoKnights today. You know what I mean? So I think it's better to get yourself more sure about what you want to think. And back to the whole thing about belief. If you believe you can do it, you can do it. And it sounds so fluff sometimes, but I've lived by that philosophy. So in 5 years' time, if we can have a solid group of scientists trained in filmmaking, that will be really awesome when you're allowing other people to peer into your world of science and make sense of what you see underwater is related to what we do on land. What you see in the city center has a lot to do with, say, for instance, how the underlying economic policies don't match. So I want to dive deep into this. And I think I agree completely with Farhan that film is truly a very easy and accessible hack. And the honest thing is, all of you are filmmakers. And if you don't give it a try, you won't know where your limitations are, where your advantages are, and being in a platform like this should be able to foster this networking. Yeah, so I think I see us growing that way, but I see EcoKnights 50 years from now. 5 years is quite short. I see EcoKnights 50 years from now, and to be honest, the day EcoKnights doesn't need to exist anymore would be the day we celebrate. Because I think it's redundant to have NGOs if people knew how to take care of things.
I would like to hear from Farhan too. Yes.
Okay, so Farhan. Oh,
Your 5 years plan.
Honestly, 5-year plan is really far because I think about like 2 years ago was the first documentary, right? A lot has happened since then, and so as long as I'm fulfilling like the need to do positive work and enjoying that I have my health and quality people like you guys like around me to inspire, I'm happy. That's it, I think.
Okay, so I just will ask each of you just one simple question. First go to Yasmin. So this is the 11th year of KLEFF. So how did you manage, and what are the main barriers that you go through before having this kind of really successful KLEFF event?
There are many barriers, but then the barriers are actually, what I did was look at how these barriers could be opportunities for us. So many years ago, where do you hold a festival? I've only been to film festivals, I've never organized it before. So I did a lot of soul searching, fact finding, everything is available on Google. I liked what I saw in DC, I liked what I saw in Japan, and I kind of plagiarized here and there, put the first Eco Film Fest, and then go back and analyze. I think that's the science-based approach you use. Field trials. So we didn't have a house, we didn't have a place that could host us. I made do, and I worked with Aswara. Aswara was the first place we did the first Eco Film Fest. And then it grew to University Malaya. And then I realized, I'm benefiting a lot of young students. Well, I think I need to now look at, after running it for about 5 years, we need to look out at being bold and going out to the public sphere. So Publika was a godsend in a way. They were very supportive of community events, and we got an opportunity to use spaces either at no cost or at a very reduced rate. A lot of the ideation came from me, and then I spent a lot of time trying to translate what these ideas meant for the team, because the team had to realize these ideas. So I'm quite known for, like I said, I mentioned in my speech earlier, to be a crazy nut, because my ideas don't really make sense when I share it. And then I have to guide the team to look at how to dissect these ideas and make it into a reality. So the barriers were all there. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's lots of barriers next year as well. But I lessened my obsession with barriers and try to elevate and expand my positivity by looking at where are the areas I can work with. So this year's KLEFF is really special because we only curated like 40% of it. We opened up the floodgates to, and it's still not well known. I hope you can bring this message to your friends or network. We had Act for SDGs, and we had all these workshops and all that. We made a platform at the KLEFF website where you apply to do what you want to do at KLEFF. So this exhibition, by Roots and Shoots, was we just gave ideas. Hey, guess what? You can host workshops, you can do an exhibition, you can bring your film, you can run activities out there. We gave them ideas, but we thought that we should empower NGOs, we should empower normal community members to come on board and look at how they can plug into KLEFF. Because KLEFF is really a community platform. I'm really happy that I was so apologetic to the deputy ministers today. And then I kept explaining that, look, we're protocolless. We give no shit about protocol. We give a lot of shit about the films. We give a lot of shit about the people that come. We care a lot about the kind of network that gets connected here, because if this is the platform that connects people, imagine what you can do beyond KLEFF. That's all I want. I just want KLEFF to mobilize, catalyze, and just move people into their own direction. After all, everyone has that power within themselves to go do something. So be it whether you're on the creative side or you're I don't know, slow Loris, conservationist, and whatever, there's always an element for you to plug in. So I intend to run this model in the next couple of years, and I want to see how we can get more inclusive participation from other people. Green Drinks is one of them. When we offered the space, we were like, you know, if you're not here, this would be just an empty space. And to be surrounded with an existing exhibition, I thought it was beautiful. I hope you guys find it beautiful. I hope next year, maybe with Green Drinks, you guys can do more. And of course, KLEFF has brought me to get to know people like him. You know, strangers, and I don't know how, through some divine intervention, we're back again and we're looking at how we can grow ourselves and grow the work that we do better.
Okay, yeah, just one last question from my side to Farhan. So in your filmmaking, the last stand for Lilu Island. So did you receive any threat? Because the project is actually by a very powerful oil and gas company. Because a lot of cases actually the filmmakers as well as the people who wanted to bring this awareness actually is being kind of death threatened by all these very rich and powerful oil and gas companies. So do you receive that kind of threat?
I had 2 in social media, but that's not a lot. And then, yeah, I think the Premier of British Columbia, she was very embarrassed about her words, so she didn't even really bring it up, which was, because if she had to bring it up, then she'd have to answer a lot. So I kind of got away with it. And I feel like, I was thinking about, like, the first time I was like, oh, this is Malaysian Film Festival, and I'm just like, really made, well, Petronas didn't look good in my film, let's put it that way, right? So I was thinking, oh hey, whatever happens, happens, you know, because I'm there I was on a mission too. It was a beautiful, the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things in my life. I'm so happy I was a part of it. And KLEFF had done so much work to bring this to the right, the attention of the right people in the government. They invited people from Petronas. Like, it was...
Lawyers were there.
Yeah, I had a chance to speak to them in a completely conversational, non-confrontational way about the facts. That was awesome. And that's like, wow, who does that, you know? Like, it was more than just a film screening, it was something special. They were helping. And KLEFF gave inspiration to the indigenous people protecting Lilu Island. Because they were viewing Malaysia as an evil, like, it was like Star Wars level evil.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like this Malaysia wants to come and destroy us, right? To destroy our land. And it was just, when they saw that the people of Malaysia stand for justice and the truth, that was represented by KLEFF. They felt like they had a fighting chance and they pushed harder, and probably because of that, it had some effect in the outcome. I know that. And they say thank you.
So by ending this session, I think we are just right on time, around 9 o'clock already, or 5 minutes just passed. So the main takeaway things is, if all of us actually is the leader of ourselves, and if we have the heart as well as the belief, nothing can stop us from doing what is right. So don't have to worry, barriers will be always there. Barriers are the challenges which makes us grow, I believe. And as soon as we overcome these barriers, then we will be someone like Farhan and Yasmin Rasyid. Yeah. So keep it going. No worries. Okay. Just a 1 minute wrap up by Farhan on just a quick summary, just a 60 seconds wrap up of today's panel session and as well as a presentation.
I would say that I'm truly humbled to be here. I'm just a peanut, you know. I'm just getting started, to be honest with you. I'm only really 2 years in, and so there's a lot more to come. So let's work together, you know. If there's cool things that we can work on together, let's talk about it and let's make stuff happen. That's really all I have to say. And thank you for the opportunity to speak here.
I'd like to thank Green Drinks and more importantly the people that have been following Green Drinks to be here. I think we'll stay around for about 10-15 minutes if you'd like to connect with us. I just slipped my mind what I wanted to say. Yes, Farhan is going to be here for 8 days, 9 days, 10 days?
Yeah,
9 days. And we're working on a special project related to climate change. And I believe in the power of networking and power of friends. So we like to talk to some of you if you like to stay back. We're trying to figure out where are the best areas in Kuala Lumpur, maybe you know, where we can demonstrate some impacts of climate change on people. That would be really cool. If you can bring us to these places or at least tell us some stories. We want to hear your stories. There's a new project coming up in a couple of months where we're going to do quite a bit of work on climate change. This is such a dry subject matter. We're having a tough time trying to communicate this to the public. So we hope in the next 15 minutes we can connect with you. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming out on a Friday night. There's so many other things you can be doing from 8 to 9, but you're here, you choose to be here. I hope it has been useful. I hope it has been insightful. I hope you linger around the next 2 days, but then again, KLEFF comes and go. So come talk to us in the next 15 minutes and see how we can create more magic and try to push more positive agenda on the ground.
Okay, thank you everyone. Just wanted to pass to Simpson for the closing of this event.
Alright, thank you very much. Again, a round of applause to Jeff, Yasmin and Farhan. Thank you very much. And also thank you very much for everyone who come to Green Drinks. Also, not forgetting my awesome team, Green Drinks family. Bernard, Jeff, Matthew, I can't see the faces. Okay, Jalan behind, and also Mai. Who else? And also there will be, I believe there will be more and more. I mean, we are actually expanding and we are looking for volunteers. So if you guys would like to help, please just feel free to come to us and maybe just drop us a phone number or something. We will actually connect with you. Alright? So just a few things as a wrap up. Thanks again to Yasmin and also KLEFF Film Fest for giving us this platform to have green drinks. And yeah, I mean, I hope everyone will actually go back with something. Alright, and also our next event will be on forest. Our tentative theme, we hope, is reconnecting with forest. Right? And our Bernard, I would say, he has actually started what's it called, Eco Warrior, where they actually like planted trees and stuff. So Bernard will be actually hosting it or something lah. Okay. So it would be in New Central. Hopefully back to the same place, which is the Berry Factory. Our old green drinks member, we have been there lah. So the Berry Factory, it should be by the 3rd or 10th of January. Because we are just a bunch of volunteers, so we just try to do it like 2 months once or something like that. But just follow us on Facebook. We have Green Drinks KL, Facebook group and also page, and also we have a website as well. Just type Green Drinks KL. greendrinkskl.org. Okay. The next event, we'll just have a group photo over here. So just stay where you are, it's fine. So we'll just take a photo here. And after, we'll go proceed with networking session, and technically it's pretty much ending. So if you guys want to stay back to ask some questions to the speakers, they'll be here. Or maybe talk to us or whatever. Technically each of the faces I see here, I know they are somebody. So they definitely have something to share with you. So yeah, just feel free to network among each other. And also, what else? Oh yeah, over there we have actually some food. Actually it's leftovers from the previous... I'm so sorry, but anyway, it is actually... Yes, okay, it is actually leftovers from the previous event, which is a award ceremony session by KLEFF. But we have some food left, so the thing is, well, our last event was actually on waste management, and Rini Fu was actually was one of the speakers. So, no food wastage, please finish it. Please fill your tummy, finish it, alright? Please. Okay, so, yeah, just, and one more thing, I think Jeffrey has actually provided some 2 tabung, or what's it called, piggy bank thingy. Technically, we are actually planning some activities. We are actually trying to not just have talks, but we're actually trying to have some activities. So we like to have some, we hope to have some fun to kickstart these kind of things. So we have actually have 2 like tabung, I don't know what it's called in English, but anyway, at the registration counter. So yeah, if you guys would like to just give in something, just go ahead. Right, and so next, thanks again everyone, and let's proceed with a photo session, and just go ahead for networking. Thank you very much again.